I found this particular number line to be especially interesting when we look at unit fractions. Um, there are a few patterns that I noticed, and I felt that it would be important to share with you. I got this from the book Unpacking Fractions. Her name is Monica Nagoy. It's a book by NCTM, and it's really awesome. If you have an opportunity to read this book, it's really worth the read. Um, Further, notice 1/2 is really far off to the right there, but it has to be in with proportion. So there are a few things that we notice as our unit fractions progress. So the unit fraction, as we progress down the line, so 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, notice that the unit fractions are getting closer as our denominators are increasing. Further, notice that we are getting closer to 0 as our denominators get larger. Very interesting. Mark walked 2/3 of a mile and then rode his scooter 1/3 of a mile. Which distance is farther? So here we're comparing fractions with the same denominator. So let's start with a bar graph here. So 2/3 is 2 copies of 1/3, and 1/3 is 1 copy of 1/3. So 2 copies of 1/3 when split into 3 are 2 pieces, and 1/3 is 1 piece. I can see now that 2/3 is greater than 1/3. Nick finished 4/8 of his homework before dinner. Ed finished 6/8 of his homework before dinner. Who finished the greater part of his homework? This time let's use Cuisenaire rods. So when I look at Nick, 8 would be the brown rod in both instances because we're comparing the numerators when we have the same denominator. So 4/8 is 4 copies of 1/8, and 6/8 is 6 copies of 1/8. 6 is greater than 4, so therefore Ed finished the greater part of his homework. We can also use benchmarks to help determine which is greater than or smaller than. So I have 4/12 and 8/12. 4/12 is close to the benchmark 1/2 or 6 copies of 1/12, but still less than 1/2. Further reasoning suggests that 8/12 is close to the benchmark 1/2, but greater than 1/2. This can lead us to deduce that 4/12 is less than 8/12, based on their location and how close they are to our 1/2 benchmark. We can also use models, other area models, to compare 4/3 and 4/4. Notice this time our denominators are different, but we have a common or the same numerator. So 4/3, remember, is 4 copies of 1/3. So I have on the left here, the orange boxes, I have a box split into thirds, and I need 4 copies of 1/3, which means that I need a second box of 1/3 to get us that 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have 4/4, which is 4 copies of 1/4. So all of them get to be highlighted. Notice that the one on the left is more than a whole, and the one on the right is a whole. So we're comparing wholes to wholes here. So 4/3 is greater than 4/4. We can use area models to compare 3/4 and 3/6 in a different way. So again, our numerators are the same, our denominators are different. So I have the same size boxes. 3/4 is 3 copies of 1/4. So splitting our box into fourths, I need 3 1/4 shaded. On the right, I've got 6 boxes because I need 3 copies of 6. 3/4 is greater than 3/6. I can see that more of the area of the boxes is shaded than 3/6. Fractions must relate to the same whole to compare them, so I wouldn't be able to expand that box on the right into something much larger. because then we wouldn't be comparing the same thing. So the whole box itself is the unit, and the unit is the same no matter which fraction we're talking about. When thinking of the strategies we have covered, did Helen correctly compare these two fractions? She thinks that 4/8 is larger than 4/6 because 8 is a larger number than 6. Pause, take a moment to think about this, perhaps draw a picture, and come back and we'll see how you did. No, Helen did not do this correctly. Although 8 is larger than 6, we need to think of it as 4/8 is 4 copies of 1/8, and 4/6 is 4 copies of 1/6. So we can use a bar graph. So notice that the entire bar graph is this, or the bar line there, is the same size on the top and the bottom. So the whole thing is our unit. The top is we have 4 copies of 1/8 shaded, and on the bottom we have 4 copies of 1/6 shaded. So actually 4/6 is greater than 4/8. Another way to show using an area model, I have 4 copies of 1/8 shaded and 4 copies of 1/6 shaded on the left. Our large box is the exact same size, just partitioned a little differently because of the 1/8 and the 1/6. But I can still see that 4/6 is larger than 4/8. And finally, your homework is to print the homework pages located in the fractions drop box. Complete the worksheets practicing what we learned in our lesson in a variety of different ways. Scan and upload your work back into the fractions drop box. Next week, we begin with grade 4.